Hello and welcome to Cyber Focus, your source for international business information. My name is Tim Smith and you're watching our series on business and peace. Our guest today is Stephen Eastham. Stephen is an experienced senior executive whose career has spanned a range of financial, legal, and management roles involving complex business transactions in U.S. and international emerging markets within the private sector and the federal government. He recently retired as Division Chief of the Economic Growth, Europe and Eurasia Bureau at the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, and has spent much of his career nurturing economic growth and development in some of the world's most challenging regions. Today, Stephen will draw from his decades of experience and will share his strategic insights on the global business environment. Stephen, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure, Tim.
You have significant experience managing large-scale investments and development projects in countries across the world. During periods of economic or political transition, primarily, what did you find to be the most challenging when working in transition economies? And is there any particular experience that stands out for you?
Gee, a very good question, and I guess could talk for days about that probably, But I think you mentioned transition economies, transition countries. So I just happened to come into this development work, economic growth work with AID about 6 months before the fall of the Berlin Wall. So of course we didn't know that was going to happen, and I was planning only to stay for a year or so in AID, and so when the Berlin Wall came down, and then about a year and a half later or so, the Soviet Union broke up, that was, nobody predicted it, nobody was aware it was going to happen, and so all of a sudden the U.S. government had the need and were being requested to come over and help these countries then go through at the same time a political and an economic transition process that was really probably unprecedented. You had centrally managed economies, you had centrally managed governments, and it was something that AID and the government, U.S. government, had worked a lot in countries that are undeveloped, like Africa, some parts of Southeast Asia and other places. But here were countries that were in nuclear powers, and Russia, a member of the G8, and well developed and well educated countries. So how did you approach them? So some of the challenges going in there were I guess kind of surprising, because I just remember the early days I was trying to help provide finance to get new businesses started, and just overcoming some of the inherent differences that I never would have expected. For instance, you go into a place to buy, I remember I was trying to buy an alarm clock, to have at home. And I went into a store and I was with a Russian lady, and it was, I think, around 4:15, 4:30 in the afternoon, and we were looking, and I picked out an alarm clock, and she said, "Oh, okay, let's get it." And so we took it and went to the person to buy it, and she said, "Oh, sorry, we can't sell it to you today because we close at 5 o'clock." I said, "Well," she said, "Well, it's only 4:30, not even 4:30. She said, "Oh yeah, but we have to be out of here at 5 because that's the end of the day. So we can't sell it to you." And so it was this notion of customer service. Now, if that happened in the U.S., people would stay past the closing hour to sell another product, right? So it was this whole concept, and that was just a small example of the way they approached their work. Everybody in the former Soviet Union made sort of the same amount, $30 a month, more or less. They had a lot of certain privileges. Their apartment cost $1. They had fuel was very cheap. But it was these sort of what they had experienced for 40, 50 years or so under a command economy. They couldn't overcome. I mean, in the early days, it was very difficult for them to overcome this idea of actually working. The joke that people told was, the government, the ruble's really worthless, and so the government pretends to pay us, and we pretend to work, And so you can imagine how incredibly inefficient things were. So we are coming in trying to give them kind of new skills training in how to run a business, how to start a business, how to run it. So financial skills. We were thinking, more of mentoring them for management and marketing, and we realized that we needed to kind of start at a different level. They all were well-educated, smart people, but there was no concept of sort of the life skills, that you have, more simple life skills like showing up for work on time, even coming into work. It wasn't always a penalty if you didn't come to work. So some of those things, those were some of the challenges, but then some of the others were maybe even more difficult challenges were the fact that the government, in our system, in our legal system, if in the United States, maybe we don't think about it all the time, but if there's something is not specifically illegal, if there's not a law against it, then you can do it without being charged as a criminal or something. In most of those countries there, in order for something to happen, like if you wanted to sell a business that the government owned, you'd have to pass a law. So in other words, people would say, well, can I do this? And can I mortgage my house? Well, there's no law that says you can mortgage your house, so you can't do it. You have to have a law that says you're allowed to do it, has to specifically say that. So there was this huge, you can call it cultural, but it made its way into the law, just the way they viewed the world, that if you can think about it as a citizen, if you're there and you said, okay, where does it show me that I can sell my car, or that I can sell my mortgage, that I can mortgage my house or something like that? And if it doesn't say it, specifically, you can't do it. And here we have the reverse, So that whole mentality was something. Now it changed, took some years, but it changed. And so we had, in trying to come in and do things like start a business, we had to start, and change the mindset of people that you're to be more proactive, to think like, okay, I want to go do this, and so I'm going to do it, and until somebody tells me that I'm doing something wrong, and so it's a lot of that cultural,
Yeah, a significant cultural change.
Yeah, those were some of the challenges. There were a lot of others, of course, just logistics and all that, but I think really at the heart of it was changing the mindset that I don't have to ask the government every time I want to do something, as long as it's not crazy. I should be able to do these things, and then change actually the existing laws and regulations so that it was more permissive in society to do things from a business standpoint that didn't really hurt anybody.
Okay, thanks. In transitional economies, what role do you think that business can play in the peacemaking and stabilization process?
Yeah, I haven't always directly linked business and peace, but I started thinking about it when I was invited to come to this event. And of course, I realized that having a stable economy, having a productive economy, prevents, or makes it less likely that people are going to go off and, start a war, or get involved in terrorism or other negative type actions. But I think that, as I connected a little more and thought about it, it's this. I think the number one thing that I see, and there's a lot of elements, as you know, it's not only one thing. People talk about the religious differences, ethnic differences people have, and those certainly play a role. But I think in the reading I've done, the experience that I've had over the last 30 years and all around the world, the lack of economic opportunity is the thing that I think that most writers and observers now feel that there's a huge correlation between unemployment, not being able to get a job, and being able to keep young people away from being radicalized. Okay, so that's really, in my mind, the overriding issue. Not that the others aren't important, but I think being able to have a sense of a purpose when you get up in the morning. Think about it. If a young person, if your son or something, was of working age, 20 years old, and he got up in the morning and he didn't have any place to go. He'd been through school. I know 100,000, Tunisia has like 100,000 university graduates every year, and very few of them get jobs. These are people who, I always say, they did the right things in life. They went to school, they got their degree, they made an effort. and then they get out of school and they can't get a job. Likewise, even if you're just out of high school. So having a sense of purpose in life, being able to say, this is what I do, and just think if you don't have that, you have to say, oh no, I don't have anything to do today. And so they have free time. They probably look at social media, even in all these countries that wide access to it. So I think the lack of economic opportunity is kind of the overriding thing. Somebody said that we have to give these young people something to live for, rather than something that ISIS will give them something to die for. Okay, and we've got to do something different about that. So this whole lack of economic opportunity, I think, is the most important thing you can do to settle down society. And by itself, yes, it's not the only thing, but in all the things that I've looked at, many of these countries have very large youth populations. Like half the country or more is under 30, and a significant part of them between 20 and 30. And you see those, I go to places that I see too many people sitting around coffee shops, sitting there, they're 25 years old, they're sitting there spending half a day or more there. So you need to involve them in something where they feel like they can provide the basic needs of their family. If you're 25 and you don't have a job, you probably are not going to get married. That's an issue for the country. You can't provide your food, clothing, and shelter for your family. And then anything more than that, for your own dreams to achieve some of the things you do, to travel, to start a business, you can't do it. So having the resource in a country to provide that, and businesses can do that. Businesses through job growth, American companies can go over there, or the local companies can build it up, and so I think addressing the economic opportunity issue is the largest challenge that I see. But the businesses can have a way of solving that. Job creation is a very important. When a place like Starbucks or a company like Starbucks goes in, and a low-tech company really, make coffee, but they hire thousands of people, around the world. So.
Now that's great, Steve. And following up on that, what should businesses and institutions in the U.S. be doing to help build a sustainable global economy?
Well, I think it's not only our responsibility to do it. I think that we have to look to the countries themselves. It is their primary responsibility to do it, but I think that we can reach out in the countries that want a helping hand from us. I think we can send people over there. We send skilled people, people who've done entrepreneurship here, people from academic areas to help provide them some of the training and some of the skills that they need to start a business, or to even be a good employee someplace. So I think we can do that. And the other side is, people in these countries really have a hunger for. They're all participating in social media. They know what's going on in around the world, and I would say a very large percentage of them have a hunger for what's going on in the United States from a business standpoint. What our entrepreneurial ecosystem looks like. They hear about the Silicon Valley. They hear about these success stories of people starting companies that are become billionaires, and it's not just the money that they're interested in. They're really interested, I think, in the experience that they could take their ideas and build them. And so I think these kind of mutual exchanges, having skilled business people and academics, educational programs for people in country, and including at the ministry level. I recently helped organize a group of deputy ministers from Ukraine, 12 of them, number 2 people in each of their cabinet positions like ours, to go to Poland and study how Poland went through its own transition process more like 20 years ago. And Poland is considered one of the leading, more forward-looking countries in terms of the way they navigated the transition process. And so they went and spent a week or so in Poland, and then some of the Polish people went to Ukraine. We did that kind of exchange at a ministry level. So doing that at a ministry level, at a business level, and then I think at a student level is, are some of the things that we can do as a country. And so the U.S. government, through AID and other organizations, sponsors these kind of trips. And like IU is doing now, this is a great way for us to help create positive change in these countries.
Indeed. Well, Steve, thank you so much. Thank you for coming in and speaking with us today.
Thank you, Tim. My pleasure.
That's all for this edition of Cyber Focus. Thank you for tuning in. If you have any comments or suggestions for future topics, please let us know at cyber, that's CIBER, @indiana.edu.